Keith,
Good morning.
good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Anybody who wants to come join us for this conversation, come on down. We're going to get into your journey because this is obviously the season of giving. It's all about generosity, and our theme for today's empowerment experience, and actually for our 20th anniversary, which is in 2023, is about joy and power.
Joy and power.
Joy and power. And so, your career, I want you to give us a bird's eye view, navigate us through your amazing career. You're a physician,
Yep.
you're an entrepreneur, you're a philanthropist, and now you're in the fintech world, like the financial tech world. So tell us, how you got from, where did you grow up? North Philly?
West Oak Lane.
West Oak Lane
Yeah.
to, conquering the world.
So essentially, I was trying to emulate your father, who you all know was a big mentor of mine and someone who I looked up to. As you mentioned, a physician, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist who was concerned about the community. And one thing that I was reflecting on in general before I get into my personal story was that, I'm sure early on, WURD was something that your dad felt like was just a part of his legacy and more part of his, it wasn't about making money, right? It was about providing support of something that...
Wait.
Yes, then.
It wasn't, but let me just say, and you know this as an entrepreneur, businesses will not continue. They will not survive indefinitely if they are not making money.
Oh, no. No, I'm talking about when
yes.
your father had to make
yes.
the early investments in this, right?
Yes.
It wasn't, early on, it wasn't about just, providing information. Well, it was about providing information, wasn't about the dollar. So, my personal story, I grew up in West Oak Lane, what I call amongst the working poor, single parent home. I really didn't know a ton about a lot of careers. And so, when I was 5, I knew what a doctor was, a lawyer, a policeman, fireman, teacher. And the one that spoke to me was the one I thought I could make money and help people, and that was become a physician. And, I've kind of had 2 main goals in life. As I said, make money, help people. Making money wasn't optional. Helping people was always in my DNA. It actually was surrounded by the fact that I received a lot of help going on early on. I went to medical school and business school, and I remember early on, every time I applied to a school, when I got accepted, we never had the money to actually put the deposit on. So it was always someone in the community or someone in my mom's circle or someone at work that was actually helping us and providing some level of support. So, it's been always important for me to give back. And so when I finished up college, I went to Hampton University for undergraduate, came home, and went into medical school and then business school, but I was always an entrepreneur. Ended up having this commercial cleaning company, so I was cleaning offices at night to make money, and ultimately ran across a gentleman named Jerry Linfest, who was very good friends with your dad, who ended up going on to sell his company for $1 billion or so, billions of dollars, should I say, and ultimately becoming one of the wealthiest people in our region. He empowered me as a philanthropist. I chaired the board of the Linfest Foundation for many years and saw the impact that what philanthropy could do to help our community. But what I also realized is that our community is actually one of the most philanthropic communities, right? Like, we as people have always been really generous people, and it's always been connected to the struggle. It's always been connected to the fact that, it's hard to forget the struggle when you're from the struggle. That's why, once again, your dad was such, a pillar in our community, not just for his business, but for his generosity. The way that he made sure that, that people were taken care of or that programs were supported that wouldn't have got the support early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the things, and I want you to talk about your newest endeavor, philanthropy with an I, because I love the fact that you are kind of reimagining and redefining what philanthropy looks like, and it's not just about wealthy white people, basically. It's actually acknowledging the informal philanthropy that we as Black people have done for centuries, really.
We have been standing up philanthropy, participating in philanthropy since the days of slavery and beyond. Seriously, I mean, even in Africa, right? Like, giving in community is essential to, the African experience, and then, even beyond slavery and Jim Crow, like, it was all these mutual aid societies, all those things that were out there that we actually had to pool our resources together to help the community. We didn't receive the support based on the generosity of white people, specifically years ago. And many times, most of them, as we all know, did not want us to have anything. So we, as a community, had to pull our resources together. And that was, people who were slaves, people who were recently freed, right? Like it's all, so this is unique to our spirit. And philanthropy as a company with an I was all about empowering the everyday philanthropist. Because there is a huge misconception around what it means to be a philanthropist, right? There's a huge misconception. Everybody in this room and in this audience is actually a philanthropist. If you have given your time, your talent, your treasure to a cause, you're a philanthropist. And the reality is that as a percentage of our income, everyday people like you and I give a greater percentage of our income to charitable causes than wealthy people, which means that it's actually more meaningful to us. If there's a study that showed these uber wealthy people, they give away less than 1% of their wealth away to charity in a year. 13% of our wealth actually goes to charity, and just our income goes to charity. For black people, that's on average, right? That's a lot. 66% of black people actually give to charities. That's far greater than the average, which is around 49% of Americans in general giving to charities. And so we as a community have always been philanthropic. I think oftentimes we don't realize it because we don't get our names on buildings. We don't feel as empowered as philanthropists. And that was one of the reasons why I built out this platform, which was the ability to give everyone to create their own personal legacy. We wanted to make giving really simple, easy, and impactful, right?
So I want you to talk about your partnership with American Express, but let me just reintroduce you for people who are listening on the radio.
Absolutely.
We're talking with Keith Leaphart, and he's the founder and CEO of Philanthropy.
Yep.
That's Philanthropy with an I. And he's a physician, he's a raging entrepreneur, he's an amazing contributor to the Philadelphia ecosystem. And so talk to us about how philanthropy, your organization, works and what this relationship that you cultivated with American Express is.
So the company started out as an idea to, once again, to empower everyone with the tools to build their own philanthropic legacy. We often hear about the fact that, Gates and Buffett and all those wealthy people have their own personal foundation. And, the foundation as a vehicle is really a way for them to organize their philanthropy, to think about it strategically, to see the impact over time, really to be able to create a plan around what impact they want to have. And the fact is, when I was chairing the board of Limfest Foundation, we were giving, millions and ultimately billions of dollars away to different charities. I, on the side, was giving away, $500 a year, $1,000 a year as I was starting my philanthropic journey, but that was just as meaningful to me, right? And I wanted to be able to see the impact over time. I couldn't even think back what did I do 5 years ago, 6 years ago? And I felt like there should be a way for you to see your philanthropic profile or your portfolio of giving. And then another event that occurred was, my mother passed away. And oftentimes, and she was my biggest kind of inspiration in the world, and one of the most generous people, probably because of the fact that early on we didn't have much, so she was always in need, and so it was always important to get back. And so when she passed away, I wanted a way to kind of preserve her legacy, and we always think you can set up a foundation in someone's honor. And setting up a traditional foundation can be quite complex, right? You have to have a board, audit committee, all these really things that make it, more of an administrative burden. And I found out about a tool that the wealthy had been using for years, and it was a tool called a donor advised fund, right? I'll say it for the radio audience again, a donor advised fund. And what that is essentially giving everyone the ability to have your own personal foundation without any administrative headaches. And so the way they were using, the wealthy were using it, they, Fidelity Charitable, Vanguard Charitable, Philadelphia Foundations, places like that, it was really like a tax play. You did really well, Sarah. Your accountant comes to you and says, hey, you're going to get hit with a tax hit. Take $100,000 and create the Lomax Family Fund or whatever.
The Lomax Family Foundation,
right.
which actually exists.
Exactly, right? So, and then decide where to give it away. But there were minimums. You had to start one with $25,000. When I said, why is it that you have to, in order to see your legacy, you have to start it with $25,000? I believe through technology, you shouldn't have to do that. And so why couldn't you start your own foundation with $5, $10, and build over time? Because the concept of being a philanthropist has really changed. It used to be a destination, I would say, in your father's, with your father's generation and Jerry's generation, meaning you had to sell a business and then begin, right? Today, philanthropy is more of a journey, right? Millennials and Gen Z are the most active givers. 8 out of 10 millennials have given to charity in the last year. 3/4 of them actually define themselves as philanthropists. It's not because they, have the most wealth. Similar to the black community, we don't have the most wealth. We just have this desire to help people, right? It's not about our net worth. You always hear about our negative net worths and all the above, but we do have this passion to help people. And so this was about giving people the tool to build their philanthropic legacy. And so you don't have to be even a Lomax to have your own personal foundation. You could be a Johnson and set this up. And what we did with American Express, so we started off as an employee benefit. We started off as an employee benefit, and employers were setting this up almost like a 401k, but for philanthropy. And so they were actually putting funds in their employer's account, getting the tax deduction, and allowing the employees to give to the charity of their choice. Think of it as like bottoms-up philanthropy. It was no longer the CEO of the company says we're going to support these organizations. It was like, hey, I have these employees. They want to make a difference. How can I inspire them and help them to pursue their philanthropic passions? And so we partnered with them. We ended up having a real transformational moment when we formed a partnership with American Express. And you asked about that earlier. And American Express is one of the largest companies in the world. It is the premier, kind of credit card company. And what they realized is that their customers wanted easy ways to give, wanted repeatable ways to give, and how could we attach this to something that we all saw at the checkout, which was Roundup. And you've been at the CVS or Walgreens or Giants, and they say, hey, you want to round up to a random charity? It's like, hey, it's not a charity that I'm passionate about. How could we enable you the ability to round up into your own personal foundation and then direct it to the charity of your choice? So we spent a year plus doing an integration. We went live in early September. It's super exciting to see people using the platform all across the country, and we're excited about the future with that partnership.
We're talking with Keith Leaphart from Philanthropy. He's a physician, a CEO of Philanthropy, an entrepreneur, and he's with us today to share this concept of kind of, I think we called this session, Give Black.
Give Black for sure.
Give Black. And I just want to note that Chef Scott is cooking in the background. So if you see him up here and doing his thing.
That's the first thing I noticed was somebody cooking on stage. I said, what's happening
There's somebody cooking on stage. So that's, he was up there. He must have jumped down, but he's going to be jumping up and down. But that's actually a working stove, and he's actually cooking food while we're doing this.
And you got my people from Jamaican D's here, too.
We got Jamaican D's here. We've got all kinds of things going on today. So come on down. Join us at 1835 West Oxford for the 2022 Empowerment Experience. And right now we're talking with Keith Leaphart. So I want you to talk about, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, because a lot of times we as Black people are painted as having kind of a scarcity mindset and not having enough. But how do you change the narrative from this perception that we're always kind of, scrimping and are not able to support each other, to the reality that we are abundant and we are able to create wealth in some ways, and that needs to be shifted. That mindset needs to be shifted.
Well, I think that is one of the beautiful things about the platform of WURD, right? WURD is probably the best example of what happens when you have someone who came from South Philadelphia, who struggled early in his life, became successful, became a physician, went through got educated, went to medical school, became a physician, became a business leader, right? Became an entrepreneur, and then took his dollars and reinvested them back in the community through different things. So when you look at it, it's and for me, I'm sitting back saying, that is what I want it to be. So I knew who your dad was long before your dad had any idea of who the hell Keith Leaphart was. Seriously. I mean, I knew who he was. And it was somebody for me to be able to say, if he can do it, I can do it. I knew everything I just told you from South Philadelphia, where he went to high school. I knew everything about your dad. And it made it so that for me, I knew as a black man who grew up struggling, getting into trouble, all these things, that, hey, I could do what Dr. Lomax did. And then when I met him and he was personable and, was rooting for me, right? Like was a cheerleader for me, that was even more inspiration. So oftentimes it's like, I always say you can't be what you can't see. And we need more examples of entrepreneurship. We need more examples of, stations like WURD, independent businesses that are owned by blacks that are actually growing. We have always been very entrepreneurial. We've had to be, we have scraped together oftentimes to start to think of what Leon Sullivan did, which was brilliant, right? The 1036 plan. This was in I believe the 70s, where he had his congregation saving $10 a month for 36 months, right? That is cooperative economics, right? That is collective impact. That was the model for what we can be doing today, and platforms like, even philanthropy like mine right now allow us to really, almost like a philanthropic savings bank. That's almost what I call, the partnership with the American Express, where you're taking your change and pulling it in this kind of philanthropic savings bank, retabulate it, we give you the balance, and then you can direct it wherever you want. And those dollars add up over time, right?
And how do people find out more about philanthropy and set up one of these accounts so that they can begin to amass that money that they can then deploy?
It is very, very simple. So first and foremost, you mentioned our company is Philanthropy with an I. You go to philanthropywithani.com. That's PHILANTRHROPI. There you go. Did we get that? Philanthropy?
I think you forgot an H.
I add an H, or I forgot an H. PHILANTHROPI.com. There you go. So you can go to philanthropy.com. You can just sign up right there. It'll take you 3 minutes to set up your account. It's really as simple as, signing in, naming your account, finding different ways to fund your account, and Roundup is one of those ways. You can just add your ACH or credit card, and then finding different charities that you want to give to over time. You can set recurring contributions, so you can save $5 a month, $10 a month, and put it away for when there is a cause that you're interested in. And so it is really, really simple to do.
That's great. We're talking with Keith Leaphart, Dr. Keith Leaphart, the CEO, founder of Philanthropy with an I. And so Keith, we talk a lot about this question of, we know that Philadelphia is the poorest big city. We know that there are a lot of challenges that we're seeing in the black community right now. And we talk a lot about wealth creation.
Yes.
How do we, shift things so that this city is not chronically, generationally impoverished? And I know that we have an abundance mindset, but there are some realities. So what do you think this city needs to do to create more black wealth specifically?
So we talked about this session being give black. We have to support black. We have to support black businesses. I'm going to say it again. We have to support black businesses. We have to keep our money in our community, right? So me as an entrepreneur, I just can't talk. I have to make sure I have, black vendors and black partners, right? My accountant is an African American. My attorney is an African American in my business. Like, we have to make sure that our professional services and our, our partners are African American led. And that's not about not wanting to do business with others. We do business with others all the time. That is not our problem. We spend enough money in other communities. So it's not like we just need to be intentional about making sure that we begin to recycle dollars. Because, by the way, we are most likely to hire those who need it the most. And I'm talking about young black men and women who are disenfranchised, who may have been incarcerated. And I spent 13 years ago, I spent a lot of time working in reentry here in the city, what was before it became criminal justice reform, talking with leaders about the importance of hiring people with criminal histories. And this is when Jerry was alive. And, we would sit in rooms and I would talk to business leaders and talk to them about the fact that, hey, we have over 200,000 ex-offenders here in this city. Many of them are locked out of the formal economy. So what do you expect them to do if you won't hire them in your bank, in your school system, in your business, right? If you don't want them, they can't work there because they've made a mistake. Most of it was drug related. We all know that the war on drugs has been around for years, but it was a war on drugs that only happened in urban communities. Drugs are used more in the suburbs than they are in the city, but the way they prosecute and the way they actually intentionally went after black people, young black men in particular, locked them up, gave them a record, and then said, when you come out, even if you want to get yourself together, now you can't work and create these barricades, right? The people that will be more comfortable taking that chance are going to be black people who's like, well, that's my cousin, right? That's like my family walking in the door. And so, we have to have more of us in business. We have to take the chance. It is risky. It is not easy. We don't have the ability to be Jeff Bezos and have, your dad give you $250,000 to start Amazon back in 1994, right? That was a lot of money, right? $250,000, right? Your parents just be able to gift that to you or, to help you stand up a bit. We don't have that at this point, but we can work collectively, as a people to support our respective businesses. It's starting to happen. I think there are more young people thinking about entrepreneurship. They're seeing it more. We're not all going to be athletes and entertainers. We are not all going to be athletes and entertainers. And unfortunately, a lot of young people, that's all they see, that's all they know. They don't know that they can, own a radio station or become a physician or become, anything really. I mean, they're just not thinking about it, and the schools are problematic.
Well, let me ask you this, because obviously we have a very crowded mayor's race. We got, I think, 10 people who are running. From your vantage point, from where you're sitting, what are like the three most important qualifications that are going to be transformative for the black community?
So when it comes to the mayor's race, as you said, we got a ton of candidates in there. I think the next mayor, he or she has to be a visionary leader, right? Has to be a champion for the city. Like, give us some pride back in our city. We've all somewhat lost, hope, confidence, faith. We're all walking around on edge because of what we hear on the news every day, right? Like, give us some hope and faith in our city that we can do better. And ultimately, when it comes to what they need to ultimately do for the black community, is make sure that blacks are actually able to participate in the contracting process in a fair and tangible way. I think any mayor that does not actually call out specifically percentages for black people in the city, and I'm not talking about minorities. We've already done the women and minorities, all the above. Like, we know that there are majority businesses that are minority, specifically women-held minorities, because the husband is 49% and there is a white woman that's 51%, and they're competing with black businesses, on contracts, right? So we need them to be very intentional about calling that out, prioritizing that, and understanding that it is important, not just for the black community, but the stabilization of the city as a whole. Because if we continue to struggle, by the way, if we're continuing to struggle and, our kids feel hopeless, it is actually just going to pour everyone down. Marshall Mitchell, who's a friend of mine, and my pastor always says, listen, when a plane goes down, whether you're sitting in first class or in the back row, if the plane goes down, everybody's going, right? And Philadelphia, as a city, he equates to the plane, and the plane is about to crash, right? So how do we keep that plane from crashing in our community?
Yes, so we're talking with Dr. Keith Leaphart. Okay, we're gonna take this back up.
Take it back up.
We don't want planes crashing.
Yes.
So you're doing all of these amazing things. What is next? What is next for you in your entrepreneurial or your physician journey? What's next?
To me, it's all about breaking barriers. We need to see, like, the legacy of a Dr. Lomax has to live on through a Keith Leaphart, right? Like, the legacy of Keith Leaphart someday has to live on through some other set of entrepreneurs, right? It's like we need more and more. So for me, it's about breaking barriers, finding new challenges. I built a lifestyle business called Replica that really well, that's been around for 40 plus years. I've been involved with it for over 12 years. But for me, the biggest challenge was how could we build a tech company, something that has the ability to be transformational, which is a challenge in itself. It puts you in the world where, I'm now having to deal with venture capitalists, and we all know that the amount of money that is needed to build technology companies is massive. And so, unfortunately, you're in position now to go and, sit down with a lot of white VCs who the money just doesn't flow to a black entrepreneur as it would as a white entrepreneur. It's the truth, right? It's not, we're not making this up. The amount of money in venture capital that goes to black entrepreneurs is like less than 2%, if that high, right? So it's really, really low. And so we actually have to create our own wealth. We have to be in position to fund our own business. We have to do it on a smaller scale. I always say start small and think big. So whether that's, putting, if I'm in a community and we're saying I'm going to put, 10 of us are going to put $200 together, right? Save $200 in the year, then we're going to have $2,000 at the end of the year to do something collectively together. That's a start. And that's based on your capacity. It could be we're going to put $5,000 together as a group, and we're going to have $50,000 at the end of the year to be able to, purchase a building. Right now we all know that the real estate market has changed. There are going to be some opportunities in real estate in our community. And we actually need to be in position to buy those properties, refurbish those properties, resell those properties. Oftentimes we miss these opportunities. I think right now is a big opportunity.
Excellent. We have been talking with Dr. Keith Leaphart. Thank you so much for coming down here. So I'm going to ask the standard kind of journalist question. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to speak about?
No, I'll just say, once again, we went on a tangent here because it's always great to talk to the WURD community. I feel like every time I'm here, I need to talk about really important, deep issues. But one of the things that we can do as a community is always continue to give back. And philanthropy as a company has made it really easy for all of us to kind of build our own philanthropic legacy, whether you're giving $5 away a year or $500 a year to different organizations or $1,000 a year. We have made it really easy and simple for you to see that impact over time. And so for all of those in the audience and here today, as well as, on the air, once again, go to philanthropy.com with an I, click the sign up button, set up your personal foundation. Mine is in honor of my mother and sister who passed away, and it's just a great way for me to continue their legacy long beyond. It's like a way for me to amplify their name and what they meant to me. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming down. Give it up for Dr. Keith Leaphart. He's the CEO and founder of Philanthropy. What an innovative idea, concept, way to bring it to fruition. Always great to talk to you.